Hey, thanks for tuning in. In this video, we're going to talk about dietary laws beyond clean and unclean. There are more dietary laws than just the issues of clean and unclean. There are more considerations when it comes to what we might call kosher than just avoiding the pork, avoiding the shellfish, avoiding catfish, etc. There's more to it than that. And it can be easy to kind of forget that because that is oftentimes what is most well known is the issue of clean and unclean. That's what's considered and talked about the most. But there are other issues we need to consider as well, and we're going to be talking about 4 in this video. First off, we are not supposed to eat the blood. This is talked about in Leviticus 3:17, Leviticus 7:27, among others. Any blood, whether it be from beasts or birds, we are not supposed to be eating. We're not allowed to eat the blood. The next point is we are not allowed to eat the fat or the tallow. This is talked about also in Leviticus 3:17, and it's talked about in Leviticus 7:23, among others. I would argue that this fat being talked about is distinct from what we might think of as the fat or the marbling of the muscle tissue or little bits of fat that's wedged between the meat. I would argue that this is a different fat that's being talked about than the way we would use the word today. And instead, I would say it's talking about the tallow. The law goes into detail about offering the fat, offering the tallow, and it describes the fat covering the organs, covering the inward. And in my personal experience in slaughtering a goat and slaughtering a sheep, it is a very distinct substance there. It's not like fat in the sense that we would probably think of it as, or at least in modern society, what we would think of it as. It is a very different substance. It's very waxy. It very much pulls apart, breaks apart into chunks. It is a distinct substance. And in my view, this is what's being talked about here. We're not allowed to eat the tallow. And we're not allowed to eat the tallow of animals that are being offered, such as cattle, sheep, and goats. And so this may not seem to be an issue, but in reality, tallow is something that is used in cooking even today. It is used also in pharmaceuticals at times, and it's used in restaurants, in preparation of food at restaurants, including some fast food places seem to use tallow to flavor their fried potatoes, their fries. So this is something to be aware of, and we can kind of get narrow focused and think that we're just looking for clean and unclean. And someone may tell us that, well, there are animal-derived ingredients in this product, but they are beef-derived. If we don't remember these commands, we may think, oh, beef-derived, I guess it's okay, I wanted to eat it anyway. Well, in reality, sometimes beef-derived could mean the tallow. And the tallow is actually something that's potentially even more emphasized than the issue of clean and unclean, the issue of not eating pork, not eating shellfish. This one seems to be more severely recognized in the law. So we need to remember that. We need to remember we're not supposed to eat the fat. We're not supposed to eat the tallow. Also, we are not supposed to eat the carcass of an animal that dies. This is talked about in Deuteronomy 14:21, for example. An animal that just dies on its own, it's not slaughtered, it just up and dies either from age or disease or some other factor that we don't know. We're not supposed to eat it. And while this might not seem to be an issue to most of us now, it is something that we should be aware of. It is something that we need to remember. And also, we're not supposed to eat animals that were attacked by other animals and killed. So an animal talked about in Exodus 22:31, an animal that was slain by some other animal in the field, we are not supposed to eat it. We're not allowed to eat it. So there are 4 points that we talked about in addition to the issue of clean and unclean, 4 dietary commands that we should remember in addition to those laws. We're not supposed to eat the blood. We're not supposed to eat the fat or the tallow. And we're not supposed to eat the carcass of an animal that dies. And we're not supposed to eat the carcass of an animal that was slain by a beast. These are things we need to keep in mind. There are additional commands aside from just clean and unclean. There are additional dietary commands, and we need to remember these in addition to clean and unclean. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like this video and share it if you think it could be useful to others, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't already so we can stay in touch and so we can continue discussing Torah issues. Thanks for watching. Remember the commands. Peace.